the human. You published some papers over the last 5-6 years or so, looking at how when the eyes specifically are exposed to long wavelength light, it can do excellent things for preserving vision or offsetting some loss of visual function. Could you detail those experiments for us?
So let's take two pieces of information first. So one of the main theories of aging is the mitochondrial theory of aging. Mitochondria regulate the pace of aging. So if you can regulate mitochondrial health, you can regulate aging. That's relatively clear. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing to remember is that there's more mitochondria in your retina than there is in any other part of your body. Your retina has got the highest metabolic rate in the body, ages fast, and my argument always is it's the sports car. Bangs out of the garage, but after so many thousand miles, you've got to service it, otherwise it falls apart. So there was a very strong argument for trying to manipulate mitochondria in the retina, which is great for me because I'm a retinal person, I'm a visual person. So I had the tools to do it. So the first experiment we did, which was very gratifying, was to actually measure people's ability to see colours. Now, we used a rather sophisticated test, first of all, and that was we'd put on a very high resolution monitor, say the letter T in blue, and then we'd add loads and loads of visual noise to it in the background, or we'd have an F in red, visual noise. And then we found the threshold at which they could see that letter and happily identify it. So we found out what their visual ability was for colours. We then gave them a burst of red light to improve their mitochondria in cells that are very mitochondrial dependent. And we then brought them back and we found the threshold had changed. That threshold had improved in every one of those subjects bar one.
They could see something they couldn't see before. By one, I think it's hard. What scale is it on? Like some of these tests, like this is like the Triton test.
Well, so we tested Tritan and Protan.
Okay, so this is nerd speak for the different visual tests. Most people are familiar with the Snellen chart. When you go to get your driver's license, you have to read the letters of different sizes. So very different. This is measuring the just noticeable difference between you can see something, you can't see something.
Yeah.
When you say there was an improvement of but one, could you frame that in real world context for people who are not thinking about visual psychophysics?
Okay, it's very simple. Of all the people we've tested, we've got an improvement, and there's very large numbers of them, except one subject. So,
right? You were saying but one.
No.
I thought you meant that was the numerical size of the effect.
If you look over the population, the size of the effect is around 20%. It's very substantial. Okay? But our ability to improve visual function varies enormously between individuals.
You said but one. This is a UK, US.
Sorry.
No, but don't apologize. I should apologize. Yeah. Okay, an improvement of 20% improvement in threshold. So people are seeing better than they did prior. Could you explain what they did for the intervention? How many times a week, a day, how long are they shining red light in their eyes? What's long wavelength light? What's the nature of that light? Maybe even tell us how far away from it they are.
So in our first experiments, we used 670 nanometres, right, which is a deepish red light. The only reason we used that is because all the studies before us doing different things had used 670. Consequently, there was a database. So that's why we did it. And we did it with a little torch that we put in front of someone's
flashlight.
eye.
That's I'll translate for the flashlight, not a torch with fire near the eye.
No, definitely not.
Oh my goodness.
We did that for 3 minutes. And originally we did that every day for an hour.
Eye open, not eye
makes
closed.
Very little difference because the long wavelength light passes through the lid without it being affected very much. So I said to people, whatever you're comfortable with. You're doing me a favor. You're being a subject in my experiment. I'm not paying you for it. You want to keep your eyes closed, you keep your eyes closed. And those people all had an improvement in their color vision. Now, we then titrated that down. So instead of doing it every day for so many days, we just did it for one day. And 3 minutes of that light, one day, and we brought them back. I think it was an hour later. They'd all improved.
How stable was the effect? I mean, did they have to only do one treatment ever?
No. I wish that was the case. In all of those people, and I have to say we've done similar experiments on flies, on mice, on humans. It's 5 days.
It lasts 5 days.
5 days. It's a solid 5-day effect. So something very fundamental that is conserved across evolution is playing a role here. And I have to say that to a first approximation, anything I find in a fly, I find in a mouse. Anything I find in a mouse, I find in a human. I can't find a big disjuncture between those things. So it lasted 5 days. And the real big point to take on board is it's a switch. There's not a dose response curve here. It is you put enough energy in at a certain wavelength of light and it goes bang and click. And then 5 days later, it goes chunk and stops.
I have a lot of questions about these studies, so I'm going to try and be as precise about them. I know what's on people's minds. If people are going to get in front of a long wavelength light emitting device, do you think it's critical that it be 670 nanometers, or could it be 650 out to 800? How narrow band does the light actually have to be in terms of wavelength?
Pretty much anything works to a rather similar extent at 670 going upwards. When you go below 670 towards 650, the effects tend to be somewhat reduced.
If this is happening very quickly, you said an hour later, the vision is better, thresholds have changed, and it lasts 5 days. Do you think we can get this same effect from sunlight, given that sunlight contains these long wavelengths of light? Or is it that the sunlight isn't of sufficient energy for most people? I mean, with this, what you call torch, I call flashlight, light source, the way you described it and showed it with your hand for those listening is you're fairly close to the eye, maybe, eyelids closed or maybe open if people can tolerate that. And you're shining that light in their eyes for a couple of minutes. How different is it than stepping outside on a really bright day, closing my eyes if I look in the direction of the sun because that's pleasant, or just walking in the sunlight and getting long wavelength exposure?
Well, I'm a big fan of natural sunlight because life's evolved for billions of years under sunlight. Right? It's only recently changed. I don't know that cutoff point, but there's an enormous difference between the light produced by a flashlight and sunlight. Sunlight is an enormous broad spectrum. And that flashlight is just a little window of light that happens also to be present in sunlight. Now, I think the two situations are probably incomparable, right? And I'm not going to spend whatever is left of my career hunting that down. We know, and I think this is the global concept I've got, which is that we can do much with single wavelengths of long wavelength light, right? Like a flashlight, which is 850 or 670. We can do a lot, but we can never do the same as you can get from sunlight. But you can't do those tight controlled experiments with sunlight that I can do much more easily with specific wavelengths.
This video
was created by